And the Creative Act by Rick Rubin, he says the ideas are all out there. Like currently, they're all out in the universe, and you spending the time deciding to be creative. I actually mark on my calendar. So being a publisher, I get to read great books. I get to talk to inspiring people all day long, hear their ideas and stuff. Even with all that, I still put on my calendar every week. I time block after a certain time on Friday. I push my most of my appointments to the earlier of the week, but after a certain time on Friday, after 10 o'clock, it becomes Creative Friday. And that is not for me to fluff off. That's for me to do the projects that are more creative, whether that's filming, recording, writing in winter. And I don't schedule things. I could make a point. Somebody could jump on my Calendly. They can on Friday, and maybe I could make more money that day. Nope, because I know that the value of, just as David's talking about here, the value of that creative time, I have to have it. I need it, and I see exactly what I'm saying. So I would encourage anybody, figure out what that time is for you. I remember when I wrote my first book, my son was a type 1 diabetic. And we used to have to get up at midnight and 3 a.m. to test his sugar every 3 hours. So I would write at 3 o'clock in the morning because I knew I would be up and checking his sugar. Then I would go in and write in the computer for a while, or I would write at noon and stay up till 3. And now me and my wife switch days and things like that, but I knew those were my times. And my first book was written at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that was when I had the time. So you find the creative time, whatever your space is. If it's a chair in your living room that you can sit at and drink coffee at 10 in the morning, or 7 and Sunday before everybody gets up, well, do it every Sunday. Use that as your space.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's the author podcast where, because of this gentleman on my screen, we're all here because of him. It is true, because at the time when I first started the show, Mr. Dominick Domasky gave me a gentle, loving nudge to push forward into this podcast. And 600 episodes later, he's back. Every 100 episodes, this guy shows up. So this is his 6th time on the show, which is like crazy. And we're going to celebrate 600 episodes, but we're also going to talk about the fact that you as an author, as a writer, as a creative person, have everything you need to get started. And we're going to share some stories. We're going to share some insights, and you're going to learn a lot from Mr. Dominick Domasky, one of my favorite people in the world who will make you smile. Dom, welcome. Nice to have you here.
David, man, glad to be back. 600, you're going strong. Hey, that makes me like a 1% co-host or something.
Right.
So yeah, 1% of the time I co-host. Yes.
So on Saturday Night Live, they have the returning hosting club where all the hosts get together, and they've been on multiple times.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to come up with something for you, like a nice jacket or something,
a virtual jacket,
swag or something for 6th time on. So yeah. I'm glad you agreed to come back, Tom, when I saw you.
Thank you, man. I'm honored. Yeah. I love what you're doing for authors. I love what you're doing for storytellers, giving them a voice, giving them a safe place. We need it. They need it. The people with a story need it. So, I mean, I salute you.
I've had some of the most amazing guests on the show, some of the most amazing people from all walks of life all around the world because of this podcast. I had a gentleman on recently from Switzerland. And he has a trilogy. He's got 3 books. Each of them have their own subject matter, their own topics. And when he was explaining these 3 books to me, Dom, I'm a very curious person, and I don't even have notes, like questions written out for my guests. I'm just listening and responding. So he's going through these 3 different books. And it was interesting because when he was done explaining them, I said to him, there seems to be a thread between your 3 books. And he kind of tilted his head a little bit to the right and kind of looked at me. This guy's a professor. He's super smart. I'm nowhere near his ranks. And I said, it seems like all 3 of your books it seems like you're dealing with a battle with self-identity. And he looked at me like I just stepped on his cat. And he's like, what? And I repeated myself. He's like, that is brilliant. I've never put those 3 things together before. And when we were done, he's looking at me like, who are you? Like, how did you know to, like, I never even put that together and I wrote the books. And here you are coming in, asking me that question. How did you do that? And I'm just like, I just love talking to authors and I love hearing their stories and in real time responding as if an audience member were sitting here talking to their favorite author, right? And I just think that's the power of podcasting, is having connections with great people like you and the authors you represent and sharing great stories. And I just think that the power of our story is something that is unique to us and no one else has that same story. And in that, I think that can be the foundation for writing a book or starting a podcast or getting out there on social media, right? Running a clubhouse room. Any of these things can be done just by you leveraging who you are. And you're a great example of that, Dom.
Thank you, man. I'm a big believer in comparison being the thief of joy. And so we're closing in on 8 billion people on this big globe of ours, I think, right around there. And thinking, if you're trying to compare David to somebody else, and you keep trying to say, well, he does this better. Well, David does everything better than me. He's handsome. He's got this great voice. He's a better listener.
Wow.
But if I try to compare myself to other people, I'll lose a battle. But if I say, hey, I can be the best me, the best version of Dominick Domasky that I can be, nobody else has David's story. Nobody else has Dominick's. We're the only one who has ever been through it. So when people compare, well, don't try to be that person, because your story is the unique one. So anybody trying to be somebody else or comparing to what somebody else did, that's the miss. Lean in the opposite direction on what makes you completely unique. And I think everybody would be a lot better off.
It's funny. I create these different podcasts, Dom, and I had somebody reach out to me recently and they said, no offense. And I'm like, well, that's a great way to start a conversation. No offense, but I don't listen to your show because of the content. And I'm paused for a second. I'm like, can you elaborate on that? He said, I would listen to you talk about anything. I said, there's just something about you and who you are and how you show up on your podcasts that you could talk about anything at all on your show. You're part of my routine now, and you're my person. And I just love who you are outside of the context of the content that you talk about. I'm really identifying with you. So you could read to me a cereal box and I would listen to your show. And I'm like, I think that's one thing that authors might miss and creative people might miss. We pour all of our attention into our content and we don't leverage who we are, and realizing that people will be gravitating towards us and our content. Our content might get them in the door. That book might get them in front of us. But once they find us, then there's this potential for them to connect with us in a really unique and personal way, that it goes beyond just, I bought your book, I read your book, to I'm part of your community and now I'm cheering you on as you do your next thing. So I think a lot of authors that struggle with starting, content creators struggling with starting, podcasters who struggle with starting, if you could get a vision for someone who falls in love with you, irregardless about what you do in life, I think it opens the door for you to go, wait a minute, if I lean into who I am and not so much what I'm creating, but just be a creative person in real time, I think you're going to find people are going to gravitate to you. And that might be just enough to get you to start to do the thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Let's say if we talked about puppies, if you showed me what a great dog owner you were, and you showed me pictures of you carrying your puppy around, pictures of you taking walks with your puppy, eventually I would be like, this person's a good person. I like them. And then the more content I saw out of you, I would say, I like this about them as well. And then maybe when you put out whatever story you put out, I'd already be looking at it from my eyes saying, I like this person already, and I'm going to give them a shot. I like them. There is, going back to sales, they like you, they trust you, they buy from you. These basic premise of sales. So okay, everybody's a likable person. They trust you putting out content that they believe in, things that they see, showing them showing them you writing a book, showing them you editing a book, showing them you sitting at your computer screen with your hands on your head because you don't know what
Yeah.
because you have writer's block, right?
Right.
They would want to see that. And when you finally put out your book, if you're willing to show them all that ugly and dirty stuff, like Dave says, you're building a community. You're building people that like you, that trust you, and probably would support anything you do.
It's that whole comparison on social media, thief of joy, as you talk about, where somebody compares their Monday morning to someone else's weekend. It's like, that's not a fair comparison, right? They're enjoying freedom and whatever they're doing for fun, and you're getting up to go to work today.
Yeah.
So that's not a fair comparison, right? And I think that when we get out there and we start realizing that nobody else could write our book, no one else could do our podcast, no one else could share our story. And again, when we lean into that, I think that just unlocks the ability to be creative and to just not worry as much about what people think about you, because it's just you being genuinely you in public.
Right.
I love when somebody builds in public. We watch those things where a guy builds a cabin in the woods, or a family, creates a new farmstead, and they take them from an empty field to a house and you follow along on the journey, and you're like, oh, I feel so connected to these people, and I can't wait for the next thing, because they bring me along on the journey with them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of authors could benefit from that right from the beginning when you start writing your book.
Yeah,
Bring people
100%.
along.
100%. If we haven't talked about this, like when we're giving actionable tips to people, if somebody listens today, one of the things that I would give a tip is document everything. Quit trying to create. To me, create means today I'm going to do a video at 6 o'clock, and I'm going to have I'm going to have this. I'm going to invite these two people over. I'm going to go in my backyard. I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to take my bike, jump off a hill, and the camera's going to be set over there, and I'm going to make a video and dance afterwards. To me, that's creating. Documenting is, hey, I'm getting ready to go on a podcast with David. It's his 600th episode. I love this guy. He's helped a lot of my authors tell stories. I can't wait to sit with them and film it. Tell people that, rather than I'm saying document, meaning turn that camera around, let people know what you are doing. And if you're not ready to turn that camera around, we will go POV, point of view, and feel free to take a picture of what you're looking at, take a picture of that blank page that you're writing on, and say, hey, look, I'm stuck. Yeah, I'm stuck too, and so is the other person. So when you share that, yeah, that's a bomb.
Yeah, I like it. So one of the books I'm reading, I showed you before we hit record, Dom, is Pat Flynn, Lean Learning, How to Achieve More by Learning Less. And it's a book that I went and got the audiobook first because I can listen at work while I'm doing something else. But then I got the paper copy as well because there's just too much in here. I like to actually listen to an audiobook while I have the book in my hand. I do dual purpose. I can visually see what they're saying next. It's kind of a cool little experience. Yeah. Try it. It's a little hack. But one thing he talks about is just-in-time learning, in that it seems to be right now where I am in podcasting, because I'm not an author yet, but in podcasting, I find a lot of people who want to do this podcast thing, but get caught up in an information loop where they go to conferences, they buy books, they have 25 gurus, they listen to podcasts about podcasting, they do all this podcasting research, and not at any point feel any push or pull to actually hit record, to actually get in front of the mic and try. And it feels like they're overdosing and getting too much, getting full, getting really, really full, like at a buffet of all this information without action. And what I'm really hoping for is to kind of encourage people that you only need the information you need to do the first step. That's it. And then once you've completed the first step and you're at a gap in your learning, that's when to go find the information for the next step. But you don't need to know everything. So if I was an author to be Dom, and I was like immersing myself in everything there is to know about writing, from cover design, editing, all the things, getting my book out there into the world, promotion of my book, all these things, I would be overwhelmed to the point where I wouldn't even start, right? So there's authors that are listening to our conversation today, and that's maybe where they're at. They're just caught in this information loop. If I was a new author coming to you saying, Dom, I'm overwhelmed by how many steps there are to writing a book, and I don't know how to start. Yeah. What's your words of wisdom for a new author?
I'm grateful to be receiving this question and answering this question, because this is something I get 5 times a week, people asking this question. So my answer to you is you have to start. And so I give people, I don't care if you dictate into your phone. I don't care if you write on a notebook. I don't care if you use a computer, however you find to put words on the page. I need words on a page. So as a publisher, you can tell me all your great ideas. You can tell me the best story. I want words on a page. And I need to see words on a page to know that you have a complete thought, that you can get me from beginning to middle to end. And now, at first, David, you might not have that all at first, but you got to get words on a page. You got to, even if you're dictating to your phone and then you email it to yourself, even if you go for a walk with a loved one, go for a walk with a friend, and dictate and record the conversation that you're having, and then send it over to yourself, send the file over to yourself so that you have it. But that is a base for one later on for a publisher. That's a base for person, and the person can build. I think books more than anything are built, like block at a time. So
Yeah.
once you do all those blocks, well, then you need an intro. Once you do all those blocks, well, there's too much fat here. Once I realized in this point, I really didn't. I thought I told the story, but I really didn't. Or here I was trying to crowbar in that real big word that somebody said one time and I wanted to use it. It didn't make the book any better. And now
Right.
once you have that down, now it's about editing in a million different ways. Developing, let's say developing before editing. Once you have the blocks, you can add blocks, take away blocks, and that's where I would start at.
Okay. This popped in my head. So I'm curious if you had somebody read your book, Dom, when I read your book, would I hear Dominick in my head, or will I hear your editor in my head? Will you lose your voice if you start using those words that you normally never use? You said, like that example. How important is it for us to sound like or represent our book as the author? How do you do that?
I think it's 100% important. Like, but there's different types of books. If you're telling me you're doing a scholastic book
Yeah.
or a how-to, maybe it's skewed a little differently than where you could be using more facts and figures and case studies and things like that. So anybody here, I would study books in your genre, see how they are typically written. Do they have supporting evidence? Do they have case studies? Do they have quotes? But as far as me trying to tell the best story I can, the best story that will connect with readers, I think it is all about, when I'm reading these books, the hundreds of submissions, I don't even need to read the case studies, and I can just go, boom, I've read it. I've read all the case studies. I've read all the facts. I don't need facts. I'm like brushing them aside. I get down to the story, and that's where the beauty of it is. And you tell that. You get down to what made you the hero's journey. Take me back as far as you can go to what made David pick up the microphone. It wasn't Dominick telling him to record. Long before I met David, there was something. What was it? Was it David when he was a little boy? I wonder. Was it David when he was in high school? What made David pick up the microphone and be the listener that he is, what his beauty is? And now let me sidebar this interview. The beauty of David is he's a brilliant listener. So when you're telling your story, how far can you go back? How far to help people connect with? And that's take the reader on a journey.
I was listening to an audiobook from an author I really enjoy, and he's known to be witty, a little sarcastic, very punny, and that's just who he is. Like, if you met him in person, you anticipate that that's how he's going to show up. If he speaks on stage, he doesn't overdo it, but there's just some stuff goes right over people's heads. Like they don't even catch it. But some people are like, wait a minute, I got what you did there. That was good. That was a good one. That was subtle, right? But that's just who he is. And when I listened to his audiobook, it was like a how-to book. It didn't feel sanitized, didn't feel structured. It didn't erase his tone and how he shows up. It was him. even, and he still had these little subtle little things in there that just kind of reset you and go, all right, I remember who I'm listening to right now
And
because I
think
know this person, right?
it sounds like the person you're talking about there knows what they're doing. And you mentioned, like in the editing process earlier, you don't want to get with a team or an editor that tries to take your voice away. If
Right.
they're saying, "Hey, David, no, we don't want you to be Canadian anymore," or Dominic, we need don't talk about this because,
Yeah.
oh, this is who I am.
Yeah.
We want you to sound like somebody else. Well, I don't, and the reader, to differentiate yourself from somebody else, doesn't want you to sound like somebody else either.
So in a world where there's a billion experts on how to write a book, there's the YouTubes are full of it, and Google is full of it, AI is full of all this stuff that would teach you all the stuff about writing a book, and we get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information in front of us. Is there a starting point that you would say for a new author to kind of gather the information they need, that lean learning, just in time learning thing we talked about? Just the basics to get started. Is there like a working with you is obviously one way, but
Yeah,
kind of like where would you go? What would we do?
yeah, of course I'd want you to work with me, but I want you to get, I think all that is, you don't need it. I say start writing, like David had said earlier, start telling your story. Take that walk, write it on a piece of paper. Even if I'm not a good writer, good. Get it down on paper. If somebody that listening right now and says, I'm not a good writer, good. Imagine I'm saying this is the publisher saying good because at least they know it. They're better off than the person that thinks I'm the best writer ever, because the person that thinks they're the best writer isn't going to do the work, isn't going to do the research, isn't going to do. So that's where I would start. Start getting document down. Then you can go and learn story structure, figure out, go onto YouTube, look at story structure. And then I'm a big believer in reading as well, figuring out books. I said that before. These are books in my field. Here's what they look like. So that wait a minute, I did the same exact thing. Maybe you did the same exact thing because you've only read two books, and the one that made the biggest impact in you was the one that you're basically duplicating. So I think people need to do as much homework as they can, but first and always, it's about the writing. You can always hack it down or add details later, but get something on paper.
In podcasting world, I deal with people who they have like 15 gurus that teach podcasting.
Yep.
And get all 15 of those gurus together in one room, and you're going to get a lot of mixed messages because not everyone does it the same way. And in that, it creates confusion, it creates overwhelm, and you don't know really who to trust and who to believe. Now, if I'm writing a book, I'm not going to go hire 15 publishers to publish my book. I'm going to hire one, and I'm going to focus on that one publisher and have them walk me through it. One of the things that I tell people when they're looking for somebody to teach them writing a book, being a podcaster, whatever, is to find a voice that you trust, do some research, ask your friends and family, whatever, but find that single source of information and work with them one-on-one until you get to the point where that relationship's not working for you, or it's time to grow. Maybe you've grown past your teacher, and then it's time to move to another one. But having multiple voices pulling you in different directions at the same time, it's not a great way to start your book. Pick one publisher, focus in on what they're going to teach you, and work with them one-on-one as a starting point. And I just think that would be a better solution for so many things in this world. If we just picked a voice that we trust, work with them directly, and then get the advice in the direction we need to move forward with our project. You agree with that?
A lot of times, David, I'll see books that have had 15 different people in them, meaning in the document, changing the edits where I can see the author's voice changes throughout, or even the comments on the sides. And I go back and, well, what did you want? What were you trying to get? And then you wonder, those people that are making the comments, who were they? Did they not want to hurt your feelings? Did they want to show you how smart they were? In my world, we publish hundreds of books. We're going to develop it. We're going to read it. We're going to soak it all in. and find out, what book are you trying to write? What were you hoping to achieve? What audience did you want to hit? Because I have no problem. Like, let's say business books. We do business books all day long. A business book is completely different than a memoir or a how-to or a fable or a children's book. So
Right.
if somebody said, "Oh, you need to write, you need to know your, you need to tell them your value add in the first chapter, have 10 principles and then a wrap up." Okay, well, that's good, but not if I'm writing my personal memoir, or maybe I want to write a book about fantasy. Well, how was those? How, and one publishing house may want you. Well, you need your value proposition first. You need your 10 core, whatever they, and then your ask at the end. Oh, well, that's good for that, but it is not good for over here. So I
Right.
don't sit in a world where I try to pigeonhole people. I go back. I want the beauty of the story. I want to know why before that David picked up that microphone long, long time ago, and with each person, what is it that made them? What is it that made them take the leap? What is it that made them push record? What is it that made them, when you were tired? Here, this is, I'll speak to listener directly here. When you have to pick your kid up at soccer, when you had a long week at work and you had to work 10 extra hours, 20 extra hours, when you didn't make a couple sales that week and now your things are tighter and you're stressed, when you had to cut the grass, when you're fighting with your wife, husband, whatever it is, what makes you still want to share the message? And well, because I believe I could help one more person, because I don't want people to feel the way I did, because if uh, even when all those other things are happening, if you can figure that out, when it's cliche, but if you can figure out that why I'm doing it, none of that other stuff matters. Sure, those are all details, but you'll push through those late nights working. You'll push through the long lines and when you're waiting for your kids at soccer, and you'll get that night at 10 o'clock. Well, because you know your why, you'll go turn the lights back on and start typing because the why is strong enough. So that's what I
Yeah.
believe, David.
We have a shared quote that we both enjoy and love, and that's Theodore Roosevelt: "Do what you can with what you have, where you are." It's a three-pronged approach, and I think you can't live without any one of those three. It's like a stool, right? You need all three legs. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. Relate that to authorship. I relate it to podcasting all the time, Tom, and people are tired of me talking about that. But relate that to authorship. Do what you can with what you have, where you are.
Right. Start today, right? With wherever you at. You could start on your lunch break, Googling about books. You could how to write a book. You could, while you're waiting in that car for your kids to get home from off soccer practice, you could
Yeah.
be listening to a clubhouse about writing books. You could be binge listening to David's podcast about writing books. That moves you forward. So in my world, I believe it is all about moving forward, inch by inch by inch, one word at a time. Sometimes, a few months ago, I went back and changed one line to a screenplay I've been writing for about 5 years. About a character said, "I didn't know. Oh, when did you get your braces off?" Or "I didn't know you got your braces off." Something like that. And the line was only meant to show that the kid had got his braces off. People weren't noticing him. It wasn't like he just got his braces off. Here's how much detail goes into it. It wasn't like he got his braces off and everybody sees him now. No, 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 no. His had his braces off. And then somebody says to him, "Oh, I didn't know you got them off," to show that even still, time had passed and people didn't just notice him miraculously. So that's the kind of detail that goes into one line. And when you have time, inch by inch by inch, I have thoughts in my head of one line that make up a whole screenplay. A whole book is based on one line that I heard 20 years ago. And when I hear that line, I write that line down. And I think, now I just keep connecting. Because at the end, he would say this to her. And that
Right.
and that makes that moment. It's all based on, but it takes inch by inch by inch. So with what you have, you don't have to, so somebody would say, I don't have $5,000, I don't have 10,000, you don't need it. I don't have this time. Well, you don't need to have it done in the next year, 10 years,
Right.
20 years. The Queen's Gambit took 30 years to write,
Wow.
and then it was the right place, the right time, right
Right.
message on Netflix during a pandemic, and then it
Yeah.
blows up. I mean, so to anybody, forget all those obstacles are just noise. If you have that why and the why is strong enough, you can just keep moving forward. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, then you'll have 600 episodes, 10 books, whatever it is. And it was all because you just kept going.
Yeah. I like to take that quote again and reframe them into questions. Like, do what you can with what you have where you are. So the first question to anybody is, what can you do? What, like, with your schedule and how busy you are, and you want to write a book, you want to create a podcast, you want to do social media, whatever. What can you do right now without it being really a big taxing thing for your calendar? Doesn't mean you're not going to be walking away from your kids and walking away from your partner and walking away from your job. What can you do? That's a good question, right? So do what you can. And the next question, with what you have. What resources do you have right now? And you don't need to go out and get anything else. Do you have a piece of paper and a pen? Like, do you have those two things? You can start your book. You don't need a computer. You don't need all this fancy editing. You need to start writing. A piece of paper and a pencil. Even if you just have a pencil and you can't even afford a pen, start with that. Do what you can with what you have. And then where you are. You're not lacking in anything, right? You don't need more knowledge. You don't need more experience. You don't need another 10 gurus. You have exactly what you need where you are right in this moment to be creative and to start your journey. And as we were talking before we had record, there's so many people I find that are just not on the field. They're not out there in front of people where all the action happens. They're somewhere off camera, behind the scenes, studying about the game. Like football, for example, they're studying all the plays. They're watching game tape. They're reviewing all these things about how to play the game, but none of them have ever put a uniform on. None of them have ever stepped onto the field. They don't even know what a football feels like, right? They've never touched one, but they know a lot, but they've never actually been on the field. My encouragement through that Lean Learning book and our conversation is it's time to stop preparing, and it's time to start moving towards the goal that you've been dreaming about for so long. And in the process of doing that, people will surround you and creativity will find you because you're in a creative space. And people are going to be cheering you on towards the goal that you find so hard to do on your own.
Yep.
So time to put the books down, time to shut off the videos, time to turn YouTube off, and time to start your process and start your journey.
Yep.
It's never going to start, right? 600 episodes of this podcast would never happen without episode 1. You have to do episode 1 to get to 600. You can't skip it, right? And chapter 1 is going to lead you to a finished book. So what is it standing in your way then? Let's take those things apart and surround ourselves with great people who are dreaming with us and supporting us in our goal. That's what we need. Surround ourselves with the right people.
Hey, just to jump on that as well, some people don't have the right people around them, like currently right now. So you can get in groups, get in communities, find online communities and things like that. And if you have the wrong people around you right now that aren't supportive of this new journey, don't hate on them. They just love you for who you are right now. They love this perfect version of you. They don't want you to get hurt. That doesn't mean you can't grow. That doesn't mean you weren't meant for more. That doesn't mean that you weren't meant for a different journey. But it's not their fault that they only see this because they love you so much as you are. So I'm saying keep growing. It's okay to grow and know that you'll grow. And when they see you do big things, they'll be there to cheer you on as well. But at first they probably are just protecting you. So don't let any discouragement from anybody along the way say, well, because my girlfriend, because this teacher, because this person said, well, they just didn't know. They didn't know what you were capable of. You do. So get out, like David said, and push record, start writing. It's time.
Right. We don't want this to be a judgmental thing. We want to encourage you. There's so many things that you will unlock in the process of getting your story out there, right? So we don't want anybody to feel like they're going to finish this episode and go, oh, I'm terrible. I can't even get past the first step. Here's Dom and Dave telling me to start, and I can't even start. No, we're trying to encourage you that the potential for you to see growth will happen the moment you start moving, right? Something that's in motion tends to stay in motion.
Yeah.
Something that's not in motion tends to stay where it is, right? So you need to get in motion. And in the process of being in that creative state, that's when you're going to find more resources, more encouragement, more support. It's like I found with so many guests I've had on the show, Dom, that they found that they were most creative when they were being creative. So they got taps on the shoulders to write that next piece or unlock this story or follow this character when they were writing. When they were not in the space of writing, they didn't get as many taps on the shoulder. So I find that creativity seeks out creative people who are actively being creative and bypasses people that are too busy, have no interest, who are too busy studying about being an author without actually writing. It bypasses those people because they're not creative in that space right now for that creative idea to land with them. Mm-hmm. So creativity seems to bypass them sometimes and go to the next person who's willing and open and in that space where they're receptive to be creative, and it goes to them by default.
Yeah. And the Creative Act by Rick Rubin, he says the ideas are all out there. Like currently, they're all out in the universe, and you spending the time deciding to be creative. I actually mark on my calendar. So being a publisher, I get to read great books. I get to talk to inspiring people all day long, hear their ideas and stuff. Even with all that, I still put on my calendar every week. I time block after a certain time on Friday. I push my most of my appointments to the earlier of the week, but after a certain time on Friday, after 10 o'clock, it becomes Creative Friday. And that is not for me to fluff off. That's for me to do the projects that are more creative, whether that's filming, recording, writing in winter. And I don't schedule things. I could make a point. Somebody could jump on my Calendly. They can on Friday, and maybe I could make more money that day. Nope, because I know that the value of, just as David's talking about here, the value of that creative time, I have to have it. I need it, and I see exactly what I'm saying. So I would encourage anybody, figure out what that time is for you. I remember when I wrote my first book, my son was a type 1 diabetic, and we used to have to get up at midnight and 3 a.m. to test his sugar every 3 hours. So I would write at 3 o'clock in the morning because I knew I would be up and checking his sugar. Then I would go in and write in the computer for a while, or I would write at noon and stay up till 3. And now me and my wife switch days and things like that, but I knew those were my times. And my first book was written at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that was when I had the time. So you find so my point, find the creative time, whatever your space is. If it's a chair in your living room that you can sit at and drink coffee at 10 in the morning, or 7 and Sunday before everybody gets up, well, do it every Sunday. Use that as your space.
I love it, Tom. I do talk to a lot of authors, and one of the common things I hear from new authors is the struggle to find someone like you. They're on looking for people like you. They want to work with somebody like you, and the struggle is real as a new author to find somebody to trust. Yeah. You know, everyone listening, Dom is not paying me to say this at all. I do this because I really admire this gentleman. But if somebody wanted to work with you, Dom, let's make it easier for people to find great people like you. Explain a little bit more about what you do at Motivation Champs and kind of what an onboarding, just a quick overview of an onboarding of an author. What is the first phone call? What does the first Zoom meeting look like with you? Just to kind of take away some of the mystery. Because again, the authors I talk to, they're struggling to find quality help for their book. And I really want to talk to them right now as we kind of wrap up. But kind of give us a sense of what does it look like? I'm a new author looking for somebody like you. What am I going to get when I spend time with Dominick Domasky?
Love to. First thing I think anybody should know is there is no one-size-fits-all publisher for everybody. So I might not be for everybody, or there's no one method that's for everybody. So I want people to do their research and understand what maybe traditional publishing is for me, maybe hybrid publishing is for me, maybe complete self-publishing is for me. So when somebody sits down with Motivation Champs, we're going to study what their goals are, what their goals are, what their resources are, what their skills are, what they're trying to accomplish, so that we know here's what we're dealing with. Okay, they don't, like, for instance, if somebody said I needed a book in 3 months, I need a book 3 months in 3 months because I'm going to speak to Congress. That's a completely different story than somebody that says, well, I'm retiring in 5 years and I'd like to have my book out by then. Okay.
Right.
Completely different people. Then the next person comes in, I'm 86 years old and I want to share my life story. And then the next person comes in and says, I'm 25 and I'm great at computers and I just graduated in uh, communications. While the person that just graduated in communications probably has a different set of skill set than the 86-year-old person, different set of time, different all. So they are not so nobody is ever treated. So even like early on when Dave asked me, like, well, what video? I don't think people are, anybody is one stop shop or anybody is one size fits all. So I don't even answer that question because that's not how we do it. So once we have that conversation with you where we start, what's your goal? What's your book about? Now, then we want to see it. I want to see what you have so far. Somebody could come and it could be the most brilliant, beautiful thing already. They could be Pulitzer Prize ready. And it needs some editing, it needs a new cover. Okay, understood. Somebody else might have a piece of paper with emojis on it. And they might not even have their idea on a piece of paper yet. Well, that's going to take more time, more coaching, more suggestions, more editing, all those things. So we base everything on what we see, and then time frame that author has to get where they want to go. So for instance, if I saw that 9 pages of emojis, one page with emojis all over it, and they said they wanted a book, I might say to them, okay, well, I think based on what you have here, okay, I think you need some structure. Here's some sample structures to use. Now, give yourself 6 months or whatever time you want to put on your calendar. Is it a year? Is it a month? Put this date, schedule with me again, and in that month, 6 months, year. And did you get any farther? If you didn't get any farther in whatever time you decide, then you need more help. And basing the help we give on first and foremost letting you have the opportunity, because you deserve the opportunity to go for it yourself. You deserve the opportunity to take it as far as you can. And then once you've taken it as far as you can, where you're like, I don't know where to go next, that's where we come in and say, okay, well, we can take you to where you're in the Wall Street Journal, where you're speaking on stages, to where you have podcasts, where you're getting interviews, where you're selling thousands of books. We can do all that, do it all the time. But you owe it to yourself to give yourself the best effort first. And so, David, that I could go on and on, but I love the written word, and the story has such impact that somebody, just like we talked about, the way you write one word, the cadence, the beat, and then a comma in the right place, changing the meaning and bringing tears to somebody's eyes, and then the next line making them smile and laugh. And it's a book is eternal life, where you're passing your story on for generations and generations, and 1,200 years from now they're going to say, holy cow, I didn't know people lived like that or thought like that or were able to do these impossible things. And that's the beauty of a book.
There you go. Awesome. Where do we go, Dom? We want to reach out and get you on our team and work with you and your amazing people there at Motivation Champs. Where do you want to send them?
Thank you, my friend. Anywhere on the internet, www.motivationchamps.com. If you look up the word Motivation Champs, we should be there. Direct message us, email us. We will respond. We will help you set up a time. We will steer you in the right direction. Here's, like David, I will steer you in the right direction, whether it's with me, on your own, somebody else. And at the end of the day, if it's not on this project, 10 projects from now, we'll work together and do bigger things then. But there is never a hard close, or nobody's forced to come our way. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, David.
There's a a lack of value-driven people in this world. I would love more people like Dominick Domasky. That would make our world much better. But Dom, thank you so much for being consistent. You show up, you care about your authors, you care about your community, you care about me, which I'm thrilled to have you in my life, and 600 episodes together, and having you back again is great. I'm looking forward to episode 700. I'll get to work and get that done so we can be back together and have another conversation. Thanks so much for being here, Dom.
Thank you, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.